what I did in the recording is play mostly the same minor chord, A minor, but with different variations. So different notes that are not exactly in the chord to give tension. Also, I played E minor, which resolves very well into A minor in different inversions and in different pitches, meaning like a higher version of the inversion and a lower version of the inversion. This way we have, a wider range of lower and higher pitch of notes that we can combine into layers. The idea is to have multiple layers of maybe even the same chord with different variations and different rhythms happening at the same time. And we can have that in different tracks, and we can pan those tracks and modulate those tracks, maybe with filtering in and out at different times, so that we have kind of something that is very 3D and involving, meaning to not just sample one guitar, but to sample an ensemble of 2 or 3 different layers. And that's what we'll chop up and sample into a sequencer, and we'll step sequence that. Okay, so here is our recording. What I already did is add some EQ, and we're just ducking this area that gives it a lot of boominess. It's basically the fundamental, which we want, but we don't want it to be too much. And here we have a bit of a annoying frequency, which in some places it can be too much of a ringing. I added soothe to kind of do the same thing in the same area. We will add some compression probably too. So let's do that. We have no release, a bit of an attack. Yeah, so if you see, it's just activating in that peak there. And maybe we can add a bit of a brightness to it with a Pultec EQ, so that the sample itself will be more present. And actually, I really like this other EQ because we can add presence at 1000 Hertz, so just a bit of that, and adding 5K. So now the idea is to select clips of each of the patterns that I recorded. So I repeated each pattern a couple of times, and we're gonna select each of the elements. Let's listen to this. I like this one. So what I'm gonna do is Command E, and I'm gonna color it differently. And we're gonna do this throughout the whole recording. I like these two. All right, so now you can see that I have all the chops selected, and as I mentioned, we have just different variations of the chord. So different rhythms too. This is the E minor. That you can even hear here how it resolves into the A minor. So now it's time to move the chops into a new track, but before that I'm going to freeze and flatten the track so that all the effects and plugins and compression, EQ is printed into it. So freeze and flatten. All right, so now we can actually move the selected clips into a new track. So we can select all this, copy, paste. I'm going to copy and paste to not lose the original track. So here we have our chops. It already gives you a sense of that some chops are sounding nice next to each other, so it's not hard to imagine what to do. So what we want is to first have a layer that is more simple and is just playing the A minor, maybe in a lower pitch and a slower rhythm. So maybe we take 1 or 2 chops and just loop that. So this one is not bad. Okay, so this is the first layer. In the end, no reverse stuff, because I want the second layer to have some more reverse notes and to have faster rhythms, but still not the higher notes. I want the third layer to be the one that is kind of the melody and where our attention will go to the third layer. And maybe because we have random chops on top of each other, we'll have new chords or, different kind of voicings that we wouldn't have otherwise. Like I wouldn't play those combinations in the first place. Like that. I ended up with this as a second layer. has some variation here, second inversions, and some reverse notes. It's still messy, but we're gonna fix that with filtering. And now we want a third layer, and here I want to have this, you know, the E minor that resolves into A again. Okay, so we're gonna take that probably at the end here. Maybe that. I like the this note, so I might take that and put it here. What if I reverse that? Okay, after some time I ended up with this. I know it's not exactly what we were talking about, but you know, in combination it sounds interesting. Sounds cool. It's still messy, so what we're gonna do is to have our classic filter and LFO. For it to be filtered kind of slowly, we'll play with how fast and how slow. Maybe 1/4. How about that? We map it to the frequency. Okay, now if we copy paste this to the other tracks and we change the phase, they will start at different points. So they will be filtering and unfiltering at different moments, which will give each layer its own moment in the foreground, and the other layers will be in the background, because as one layer is unfiltered, the others are filtered. So we have kind of a shift in presence of each layer. So let's do that. Copy this. So I have the depth full on. I still have it at 1/2, and I move the offset back. This way it sounds more like... It's kind of cool if the sample actually filters so much that it disappears for a second. Okay, so now that we have each layer filtering and unfiltering at different moments, it sounds like this. Which is amazing. So now what the point of the video is coming now. So what we're gonna do is record all this into one track, so that then we can select that audio that has all of this happening and feed that into simpler slice mode, and we can play with those slices as if we had a step sequencer, which I'll show you how we do it in a second. So we're gonna group this, call it guitar sample, and we're gonna use this track as our sample recording. So sample rec is right there. So now when I record here, I'm gonna record what's happening in these three tracks. Let's listen to that. Okay, so now this is what we will fit into simpler. So we're opening a MIDI track, simpler, slice mode. We're gonna feed it this. Okay, so we have our own slices here. You know, we can play with sensitivity to change it, but we want to have it chopped in 16ths because we're gonna trigger a 16th note rhythm. I think I'll start with 8ths, like the... I think it's better to have the sequence going and then adjust the slices so that they sound as good as we want. So for that, we do have a step sequencer right here. But since not everyone has Live Suite and thus Max for Live, I think it's cooler to try out the arpeggiator. Also because the arpeggiator will give us other kind of controls and variation that it would be not impossible, but it wouldn't be as smooth to have, on a step sequencer. So to make this work, the arpeggiator is triggering a chord that we're playing. So we have to play all the steps at once and during the duration of the whole clip so that the arpeggiator can jump between the notes in the chords that we're playing. So for that, the easiest way that I found is to create a MIDI clip. Let's make it this long. And here I know it's not the smoothest way, but I think it works. So we can go to a small kind of subdivision like that, have our pen. First, let's see where this begins. From here until here. So it starts here. And now we can just kind of do this. I know it's, but I found it to be a good idea. So you do this, and now we go to a very big subdivision, maybe just the whole clip. We select everything and quantize it, start and end. Okay, we had to do it in a 2-bar kind of thing. Okay, and now we just have a couple of notes to draw in there. We have to make sure that we're not triggering empty notes. So this is an empty note, empty note. Okay, so that's our range of notes. Now we can go back to here and we can hear, if we have our arpeggiator at 1/16 and we have it in the style going up, it will be going left to right in our order of samplers. So it's a linear sequence, as if we had a step sequencer, which is cool. So we have clicks and pops and all that, and that's because we have to fix, you know, our beginning and end points. So I'm going to do that. Now, what I actually want to do is to play with the decay of each of the steps to have like a shorter kind of note, and it will stop sounding like it's just an acoustic guitar being repeated and chopped. We don't have an amp envelope here, but we do have a filter envelope. So we can close the filter and have our decay control here. It's basically the same if we send the amount of the envelope to the filter like this. Now that sounds pretty cool. You can tell it's a guitar, but it sounds like something completely different, which is really cool. You can tell that I want a digitact because this is basically what it does. But we can do this. I cannot reverse each step, which is something really cool that the digitact has. We can play with the attack to maybe give the sensation of a reverse sample. That would be something to do. And we could map this into a macro maybe, and, you know, have it as a knob that we can play with. So that would be something like grouping this, having our macros here, map our attack here, and then our decay here. So now we have this here, so it's an easier kind of thing to reach, or you could map it to a controller. Now, what I like about having the arpeggiator is obviously we can change the speed. But we can also change the style. So here is where we can get random. So this, for example. So something that we can do is to have an automation happening where we first have the regular linear sequence on the first loop, and on the second one we can automate this to converge and diverge. So we can have a first one like this. And, you know, this way we have variation in it. But I do really like this original sample that we have here. So I think we could start the track with just would have this again, so we're gonna put this here. One thing of the step sequence here that we have going is that it might be cool to have the steps kind of being filtered in random ways. So for that, we can do our famous pair of auto filter and LFO and have this set to random. Map it here. We'll smooth it a bit so we don't get those clicks. Maybe offset it. Obviously, we need to close the filter. We could map the offset to a macro and call it filter so that we can control how closed or open it is. So let's do that. Map offset here. Okay, so now I really see kind of an FM bass, like an operator kind of thing, like a simple classic operator bass. It will actually give it some spread and roar for it to have a boomier bass. So we set this to multi-band and we increase the amount on the low end one. Capture that. Quantize it. Perfect. All right, so we have kind of two sections here. Okay, so I would add maybe on this part here, we could have at the end of each 2 bars, maybe some reverse guitar or something. That's cool. Maybe by putting it in a different track, it won't be filtered. So maybe it's good to put it here. I have some nature sounds that are recorded, like birds and, you know, water and all that stuff. But yes, I would like to add some of those nature sounds, maybe like a bird. And I have that here, right? Those are bees. So I got this one and I added some echo in parallel here. Which is pretty cool. So I would also add some effects to the guitar sample. Let's add microshift, group it to have it in a parallel chain, and the same thing with reverb. Valhalla is our friend. Let's detune it less. Yeah. I don't know if I want the birds here. Maybe we will filter them. So we'll automate the filter closing at this point. Less. We could also add kind of a shaker here. That might be good. And we just want it right there, right? We will also filter it because I feel this is a very muted section of the song. Now we have the peak here, and I was going to use it as the bass, but since we have that kind of operator bass, maybe we can add some sort of but let's change our sound. Let's maybe show you the peak. Remove the reverb. It's a weird sounding thing, but when you filter it, it gives it an interesting texture. Something like that. Maybe we can add that peak let's have a track recording our peak. It's here. I like that. Oh, I can just capture it, right? Grab this part. What I would like to do is to do this again, meaning select new layers of the guitar recording we have, set the 3 layers with different panning, LFO moving the filter at different points, resample that, put it into simpler, splice mode, doing the same process again, but with a new, section. So I'm going to do that now. You see that there's 4 layers, but the top and the bottom one are the same layer. One of them is being filtered and the other one is just constantly there. The filter is off because I really like it as a melody. Let's hear it. FM bass. I want to have a sidechain synth kind of coming in and out. Okay, so here's the preset. So it's kind of a dirty note, and we just filtered it a bit, and I added a sidechain to the kick. Let's capture that. This actually sounds like a mellotron playing strings, so I'm gonna add that too. And now we haven't done it yet, but we could feed this guitar section, these layers, again into simpler and do that again, because I think that what we did before, we just had like a 16th notes playing, and that's cool, but we could do something like maybe have an LFO controlling the rate of the arpeggiator so that it plays faster and slower during the sequence, which is kind of crazy, but that's the beauty of doing it with an arpeggiator, that we can kind of control it in this weird way. We can probably do it too with the step sequencer. So the idea would be to feed this into simpler again. So we're going to do this again. We have an audio here, record. Right, so we could grab our instrument from before. Okay, so I just copied the same instrument rack that we did, and I'm just going to feed it this sample here. We have to go through the same job, selecting the slices, because right now okay, so now we're gonna make sure that those are the steps that we're sequencing. We don't want that one. Time to turn our arpeggiator on again. It's kind of crazy. Let's filter it again. So now I wonder if we can play with the rate of our arpeggiator here. I just putting that there. Okay, we're gonna map it to the rate. Might be insane, but so we're looking at the rate here on the arpeggiator. By me changing the offset, we change where does it start and end, you know? Maybe it's cool. So what I would do is move this over here. Okay, not so much. I wonder what happens if we add a vocoder to this in parallel, to just have noise added to this, as if we added a noise oscillator to the synth. So for that, we have to group this, have 2 chains. Okay. Ideas can bring you to things you'd never expected, right? This might be a cool background texture. See, that's cool. If we have something else playing, Hey, it's not bad, that sound. This is cool, actually. One last thing that I did here was to change the format here on the vocoder, which when it goes to the left, it kind of disappears or we don't hear it. And when it goes to the right, we hear more of the white noise. The LFO is controlling this. This way we hear kind of rise and fall. We hear kind of a build up coming and going, you know? Which with the vibe of this section, it really goes really well. And the other sound we added was a granulator right here. So we grabbed one of the clips of our sample where we were playing just octaves, and we have this instrument. Kind of signature sound of a granulator when you feed it something that plays the same note in octaves, and you kind of mess with the grain size and you LFO the grain size, the variation, and you make it kind of move through the sample in this way. It's a great thing. It usually is too much on the high end. That's why we filtered it a bit. Yeah, for this section, it's perfect right here. This idea is so interesting that we could do this with so many sources of audio to layer together, and we could do this with vocals. We could do this with any instrument. We could do this with percussion, like having a recording of different percussion hits where we can slice it in simpler and have an arpeggiator going through them and maybe adding a vocoder to it and changing the rate of it. Because again, this is part of a project that is called Green, and it's going to be both a mini album or EP and a live performance, a part of a series with different colors. But yeah, I just wanted to share this way of sequencing audio because it's such a interesting thing. It gives such an interesting result that it creates beautiful textures. Like, try doing that with a synth. Crazy the amount of work that would go into trying to recreate this, where instead you have this as a happy accident, is amazing. So it's a cool idea. It would be cool to see if someone tried this out. If someone watches this, it would be amazing. So yeah, I'm gonna leave you with that and hopefully have the end result soon, although it might be a while. But thank you for watching.